Good morning and welcome to Market Insights. It's a beautiful Tuesday morning and I am Lovina Emah. Now today, my guest and I will discuss sustainable agriculture. Now this is a domain brimming with innovation for promises of Nigeria's bright future. As you know, Nigeria's agricultural sector faces critical challenges such as ensuring food security for a growing population while safeguarding our environment and, of course, as you know, the insecurity which has affected our nation for quite some time right now. And in addition to that is the high cost of fertilizers. Now, we have been practicing traditional agricultural practices whereby we can grow our crops, but these traditional practices, though they have served us well for generations, they can no longer meet the demands of a changing world. Now, in the midst of these issues, there are opportunities for sustainable and alternative farming methods, from regenerative techniques like composting and cover cropping to embracing technologies like precision irrigation and vertical farming. Nigeria has the potential to become a beacon of agricultural innovation. Now, let's discuss some inspiring real-life examples to highlight further on these issues now. In Benue State, for example, Benue State farmers are utilizing readily available resources to create biofertilizers, thereby reducing reliance on chemical fertilizers. And that's a good thing. We need to have more natural fertilizers, more composite use of fertilizers to boost crop yields. Apart from Benue State's example, in Lagos State, innovative youths are pioneering vertical farming, thereby maximizing yields in minimal space. As you know, Lagos is an urban city and space for farming in this urban city is not readily available. So for youth to come up with vertical farming, that's a very good innovation that we can create more farming methods and also boost agricultural yields in the country. So my guest this morning will share his opinion on more sustainable methods of agriculture in Nigeria. So my guest this morning joining us virtually is Emmanuel Abushson. He's the Executive Director, Pan-African Institute of Agribusiness Management. He's also the CEO, TREMMA Agro Services Limited. So welcome to Market Insight this morning, Emmanuel Abushson.
Thank you so much, Lovina. It's nice to be here once again.
Yes, it's good to have you here this morning as we talk about more sustainable and alternative agricultural methods in Nigeria. As you know, people have been complaining about the cost of food prices, and food inflation is over 40% in the country. So we really need to invest more in agriculture. We need to look for more alternative ways to boost our agricultural produce. Now, to highlight further on this, I talked about organic agriculture, how we need to avoid using chemicals to process our foods, whether it's even chemical fertilizers. We also need to focus more on organic use, organic methods of planting, and also organic fertilizers now. So based on this now, what I know organic agriculture is something we have the resources for it here in the country, but what methods would you suggest as part of the sustainable agricultural methods focusing strictly on organic uses, organic agriculture?
Okay, if you're going to make it more sustainable, I think we're going to encourage more of home gardening. Every family should be able to provide at least some essentials in terms of maybe vegetables, some essential crops for themselves. I think that is how it can be sustainable, because when we take a look at a country like Israel, I was told, and we're still making some research, and I'm planning also to travel to Israel to get some first-hand experience myself, that some house, even when they don't have soil, good fertile soil like that of Nigeria, every house has the deck the house, then there is soil levied on the house, and for them to have home garden in the house, and that's how some of them provide some fruits crops for themselves. Now in Nigeria, we have over 60% of our land is arable. Now, if our land is arable, it means it's good for agriculture. However, we're not going to talk about participation in agriculture, our involvement in agriculture, not just sustainable agriculture. At the moment, we're talking about mechanization, we're talking about commercialization of agriculture. Then we now bring it home to organic agriculture. Organic agriculture is quite expensive. because it is we're talking about the use of only organic materials, not inorganic materials, then it's quite expensive. And if you're going to do on a large scale, it's quite expensive on a large scale. But if it becomes family centric, now family involving in what they consume, then we can scale it up. Then it's easier to be sustainable. So each house having their own garden. Now we have, when you go to most houses in the rural environment, we have compounds. They have large areas of land that are not actually being used for anything practically, and sometimes this can be converted to a farm, to a home farm, like a home garden, where we can even do as little as tomatoes, pepper, vegetables, especially vegetables, aquaculture for ourselves, for us to consume, and which is more healthy because there are no use of pesticides, there are no use of herbicides, there are no use of fertilizer or inorganic fertilizers, but use of manure, cow dungs, maybe goat dungs, even chicken dungs, which are the things we even rear at home and all of that. So I think for us to be able to sustain this, for this to be encouraged, we have to look at home garden, family or having home gardens. And I think these are some of the initiatives of Excellency, the First Lady of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Senator Senator Remi Tinubu, she had an initiative to support women to have home gardens in their house. And this is also a way to also tackle food insecurity in Nigeria.
Okay, well said. Yes, tackling food insecurity. But I understand that organic agriculture, I believe it can feed everybody. So don't you think we should be able to produce minimally what we can consume? Because you said it's expensive. So why is organic agriculture expensive? Because if we produce minimally what we can consume, it shouldn't be so expensive.
Yeah. Now, like I said, I talked about having a family garden. So when we have family garden, that is when it's sustainable. So it reduces cost of production because it's like every house providing for themselves at least minimum what they can consume in terms of vegetables, for example. But when we want to do it on a large scale, like I said, when we want to do it on a large scale, that is when it's going to be quite expensive because you might not be able to have things to scale it up. Let's say, for example, pesticide. You're talking about pesticide. You're not going to use pesticide. You're not using fertilizer. You're not using herbicides. So it might be quite hard for you to do it on a large scale and maintain it if you don't have resources. But if families can start getting into home gardening, just like our parents used to do before, just like we have it before now. I think I met my grandma anytime we travel from Lagos to the village, I see my grandma having a garden at the backyard. And most of the things she uses as vegetables are from a garden. Then this also even reduce the cost of what she buys. So she just buys some more of essentials for making a decent meal. So she has vegetables and there's greens, there's pepper, there's tomatoes, always. And these are things you can even control because it's at the back of your garden. You can use it for exercise. However, when we start having technology, we start having more of what we call today as civilization. We started interlocking our compounds. Now, these compounds, when we interlock them, now we can also move to the use of sacks. We're already using sack to grow yams. We're using sacks to grow some crops. So we can also use sack to grow these things instead of having flowers. Now, most of us, we spend heavily in having flowers in our homes. Now, it has no economic benefit. If you can permit me to use that word, it has no economic benefit, even for us as the home users and for our neighbors. But when we convert these things to vegetables, at least it serves to give us food and even enough for us to even share with some our neighbors or even sell. There was a time we had a sack where we use sacks to farm potatoes. We're able to also sell to neighbors. So I think this is how we can reduce costs of food production using organic farming method.
Using sacks for farming, but flowers beautify our environment, as you know. It's not just, yes, maybe it might not be, we cannot eat the flowers, but it's pleasant to see flowers. They also produce very lovely fragrances. So when you're walking past the home that has flowers planted in front of close to the fence, it's a lovely sight to see. So we shouldn't just rule out the use
Yes, I
of
think,
planting flowers completely. And yes, sacks, yes,
yes.
putting it, yes, I think it's more affordable actually to just use sacks as opposed to putting it in the flower pots. Those things can be quite expensive. Okay, now, so what are the biggest challenges facing sustainable agriculture in Nigeria? Let's hear from your expert opinion.
Okay, we have many challenges, but I will say quickly, I'll still keep talking about insecurity because because of insecurity, it has reduced participation in agriculture, especially in the northern part of Nigeria. North is still the home of grains in Nigeria, and the insecurity in that area has reduced participation in agriculture. Then we also look at weather, that is climate change. Climate change. I think as at 2 days ago, NIMET had the report that we're going to have like 3 days sun heat waves, that is having some heat waves in Nigeria, and this has its way of affecting agriculture in our present Nigeria. Then we also look at cost of production. The cost of production is soaring high. The surge is too much. You talk about transportation. You talk about cost of hiring a tractor. As at last year, to get a tractor to the farm is as low as 50,000 naira. But as at now, we're talking about 90 to 100,000 naira. Now, the cost of this of production is surging high, then it's reducing drastically participation in agriculture. Then again, we'll talk about availability of funding for farmers. Most commercial banks don't still see agriculture, especially production, as an area of investment. It's still looking like a place where the risk level is quite high, and we're trying our best to see how we can mitigate it, especially for smallholder farmers. And smallholder farmers constitute about 60% of the farming population in Nigeria. So we're still looking at how to mitigate the risk so that they can have access to funding and increase production. However, I would say the government, the current government is doing their best in initiatives that can support smallholder farmers. However, what we're just looking at now is how to scale it up and how to make sure that these initiatives get to the right person. It's not just political farmers and a lot of bottlenecks around government initiatives. You know, sometimes these fundings are some of their interventions are affordable but not accessible. While on the other hand, we have interventions, especially from the private investors or commercial banks. They are accessible but not that affordable. So funding is still a big challenge in the agriculture sector. Infrastructure is another challenge, because when you go to there's a particular state in there's a particular area in Adamawa State. When you want to move food from that local government, I've forgotten the name of the local government. We are trying to move food from there to town. The roads are quite terrible. It's some of the potholes are not longer potholes. They are big ditches that can take half of a trail of a loaded trailer. And then when during rainy season, it's quite terrible to use those roads. So these are some other things, some areas that I think that can be improved upon. Then our storage facility in Nigeria is quite very poor. That's why you see that Benue State, known as the food basket of the nation, during seasons of some particular crops, you might cry. You can go to Kogi State, you can shed tears because these crops are wasting because it's their season. We don't have room for storage to reduce post-harvest loss. So these are some of the challenges that I think, when it's properly addressed, we have addressed the issue of funding, infrastructure, the insecurity. Infrastructure also go into, even we'll talk about power supply. Power supply also is a very big challenge. Lately, the power supply in Nigeria has been quite terrible, and I think this can be improved upon. So if we improve upon them, we can make drastic progress.
Okay, yes, these are key issues that have been affecting us in this country for quite some time now. It's not, they're not new problems to us. Yes, the cases of insecurity, yes, it's been going on. But as we've discussed on this program, yes, the government is also there's trying to improve on the security situation so that farmers can return to the farmlands. Yes, that's an ongoing problem, but I would say there's work in progress. Progress has been made. And another thing, the availability of farming, this cost, yes, it's quite expensive for farmers, but you've noticed that we've discussed how farmers should come together to form clusters, have cooperatives so that they could access loans and make this farming not too expensive for them. We've discussed that also. Then infrastructure, yes, it's an ongoing problem with the road issues in the country. Like you mentioned, some potholes on the roads where you have to transport your goods are quite big, and it could cause delays in getting your goods from the farm to the market. And yes, this is also a very key issue. But like I said, all these issues are work in progress. But the key one there, the storage facility, yes, I have seen pictures on the internet also of during where these crops could be in season. For example, tomatoes and some other fruits when they're in season, and maybe due to bad roads or lack of transportation, it's difficult to get these food items from the farmland to the market. So the crops, yes, you mentioned they could waste because they could have them all over the ground, littered everywhere. But I believe it's in that kind of scenario, crops should not waste like that. They could be used they could be gathered up together and used as a manure for composite farming. Also, that's what I feel. So avoid wastage. You should not just leave them there and say, oh, we couldn't transport our goods, so yeah, it's gone to waste. So we can avoid that wastage by using it for another planting season or for any other crops there, for any other plants there. They could be gathered together and serve as manure for any other plants. And it could also boost the land wherever because where there is organic manure, it also boosts the land and boosts the agricultural produce on that land too. So yeah, so your thoughts on this, could you give us more innovative ways to combat these challenges affecting our agricultural or affecting our farmers nowadays?
Yes, okay. Practically, one of what I keep advocating for is the use of is cluster farming, and cluster farming is what TREMMA Agro Services, a company I oversee, is what we were doing. I believe that together we can do more, especially when we have arable land in Nigeria, and the federal government of Nigeria is actually doing so much. When you look at the initiative so far of the federal government, these are targeting smallholder farmers, and we need to, in our own, how to see how we can organize these smallholder farmers to transform them from small-scale farming to large-scale farming, introducing mechanization, because mechanization is the way to go. We have to move from manpower agriculture to mechanization, because with mechanization, we can be able to do more. Now, and these are the systems we need to create, and these have to be in partnership with both state government, federal government, and private entities. So private entities are like the special vehicle for the government to achieve this, their goal, and also the private sector can also achieve their aims and objectives around their business. That is one, cluster farming, and then the use of mechanization. Then also introducing, we need to now start investing in cottage industries. When we see some of these waste, in as much as we want to okay, let's see them as manure, that is quite a waste. We don't have enough to waste. So we need to see how we can preserve them, storage. Then also, I'm looking at the cottage industry for us to even have as little as primary processing unit in Nigeria. That will also go a long way, because most of what we import into this country are things that we have the raw materials. Then we need to start investing in cottage industry for us to be able to process this to an extent, usable extent, so that it can even have a longer shelf life in Nigeria. For us, that is one. Then again, a quite good orientation for farmers. Our farmers have quite a big challenge. When initiatives come from government to them, they see it as this is my own part of the national cake for me to waste. So when it gets to them, it's not to achieve the purpose why the funding was given to them. So we need to start looking at orientation. And now we have a very bad culture in Nigeria, especially not just our generation, even our young people. When I was on campus, you hear students say, after this exam, even signboard, I will not read it. So we have a very bad culture for education. No, we try to think that education and schooling are synonymous. For me, they're not synonymous. Our education is our learning culture is quite poor. And then we need to now see how we can develop farmers' culture to learn so that we can learn and innovate better way to even help ourselves. Education is to transform us to do better. Now we need to invest in farmers' education in Nigeria. I think that is one of the things we have not done enough as states, as government, as even as private body. In our interaction with farmers, we get to know that most of these farmers don't know as much as think they know, even with their experience. We are in our company, we're quite young people in our 20s, in our 30s. And then we're talking to these farmers, there's like, see, like these young people, what do you know? When did you start agriculture? How much of agriculture do you know? We have been farming even before you were born. Languages like that, forgetting the fact that education does not respect age. It has nothing to do with age. It has everything to do with your art posture and humility to be able to learn. So we need to invest in education, in farmers' education, orienting them in a proper way. That's why you see that even with the initiatives the government are rolling out in trillions, trillions of naira, billions of naira, is not actually we're not still achieving what we need to achieve. Because empowerment for me, I have a triangle I call the Abushson triangle of empowerment. I look at the financial empowerment, I look at emotional empowerment, that is the mental empowerment, and then the social empowerment. These three angles need to be properly developed so that our empowerment can get impact, can get results. So we can start looking at all of these areas so that we can now improve agriculture in Nigeria. I think for me that is how I'm looking at it. Our farmers need to be properly oriented so that they can even know how to apply as low as applying fertilizer, herbicides, pesticides. Sometimes they use overdose when they're applying some of these things. Then even the use of technology to enhance their work. Sometimes they want to change is actually quite difficult. Change is something everybody desire, but change is one thing people don't want to get, and they don't want the change to start with them. President Muhammad Buhari once said that change begins with me. Change begins with me. The campaign. So most of us don't want change to begin with us. That we want it to start from the next person. We want the next person to change, not us. So these are some of the areas I think that we can properly invest in, and where we might be able to improve agriculture in Nigeria.
Okay, yes, those are very innovative ways we could actually combat these challenges. Yes, well said on that. Okay, so now during my introduction, I mentioned some examples in our country where people have been able to create better ways to farm. For example, in Lagos State, Lagos is a very urban city, and looking for large expanse of land to farm is not something readily available. So some youths have been able to create vertical farming with the spaces available to them, which is quite innovative. And also, I talked about the case of Benue State, how they are using more natural methods of fertilizers, using the organic methods. And organic agriculture is a production that can sustain the health of the soil, the health of the ecosystem, and also the health of the people who consume what is produced from those food items. So we need to invest more in this, and also not just look around us and say, oh, we don't have enough land, especially living in an urban city like Lagos. We have to forget about that and make use of the readily available spaces we can find to tap into increasing our crop production, and also thereby also increasing our food production in the country. So that being said, yes, talking about creating more, farmers definitely need to learn and unlearn what, like you also mentioned, so that they can tap into the available resources for farming also. And yes, the cottage industries, like you mentioned. We need to also increase that. I think more awareness needs to be given to people to actually enlighten them more on the benefits of not just buying everything, buy. Let's just try to see how we can also, in a more affordable way, create that available way of farming, and also in a more affordable way in our own homes or within any space that we could carve out for ourselves. Okay, so now let's talk further about the ecological nature of our soil in Nigeria. Yes, you said we have 60% of the land in Nigeria is arable farmland, which means we could plant anything and it's definitely yield fruits. So now, that being said, we don't need to start using chemicals on our lands, because is this chemicals or this that cause problems for us? And also, in some certain cases, there have been cases where they could also reduce the quality and also the quantity of the fruits that come from the plants, because we're using all these chemicals. So won't it be better still focusing on more organic means of farming, more organic agriculture? If we could still focus on that, I beg your pardon. Yeah, so your thoughts on this, Mr. Abushson?
Yes, we are going to start encouraging people. Like I said, I think in Nigeria, civil servants are not permitted to do any other business apart from agriculture. Even when that is, they have a green pass to play around in agriculture, a lot of them don't still participate in it, don't get involved in agriculture. Maybe because they feel it is dirty. And then it's after retirement, many of them want to start looking at business to do, and unfortunately, some of them fail around this area. Now, when we talk about organic agriculture, just like I said, if every household in Nigeria, especially for landlords, for example, even some tenants can grow crops in their space. And I earlier mentioned, when you talked about flower beautifying our environment, also their crops, their vegetables that beautify environment. You need to see how beautiful tomato plant is when growing. You need to see how beautiful they are. And these are things that you can do because they're in a controlled environment. You can do them over and over. Like you can have a cycle, you can design a cycle that before this gets old and gets dry, another one is already growing and they can be replaced, like from the nursery bed, then you transplant them to a more permanent place. So that's one. Then I talk about the ecology of Nigeria. The ecology of Nigeria is very good. We have great ecology. We have great climate. God has blessed us to a level. God has blessed us to a level. What we need to do now is farming with more intentionality. We need to now be intentional about agriculture in terms of home gardening. I still repeat, home gardening is something that a lot of us will need to start going back to, so that we can even reduce cost of what we spend as individuals when we're trying to buy food. That is one. Then number two, a lot of technology is coming up currently. You mentioned Benue State, you mentioned Lagos State. And I want to thank Farmer Samson, the founder of soilless farming. Now, we don't have excuse anymore. You don't have land. We have we have soilless system of farming that you can produce your food. Now, these are things that I feel that we can get ourselves involved as young people, as civil servants, as even business people. These are things you can do that it does not require too much effort. Not too much effort. You just get the system going, and you can do your farm. Now, when we do this, I feel that it's going to be more sustainable, and everybody can be involved in agriculture. Everybody can be involved in agriculture. This can become your exercise, just to water them, to do the planting. The weeding is even simple. It's something you can control. Organic way of farming is quite simple, and I think home gardening is another thing we should start advocating for. Just the way we advocate for planting of trees, I think home gardening is another thing we can advocate for if we actually want to tackle food insecurity. A lot of us have too many land sites that is wasting, doing nothing. In Rwanda, I think a plot of land, according to in Kigali, is at 300 square meters. So when I mentioned it to one of my friends in Nigeria, I said, that is small. So we have so much, but we are not even harnessing the much we have. So we are now having, we have too much waste culture, and that is quite bad. So if we're going to encourage food security, if we're going to encourage organic farming in Nigeria, I think the best way we're going to start is we start with home garden. So every house should have a garden. The way we want to plant trees, we're trying to talk about climate change, we are advocating for planting of trees. We should start also advocating for planting of, for home gardening. This is one of the most easiest way to start organic farming in Nigeria that is more sustainable. And for Lagos State, some states that are already adopting soilless farming is quite nice. For me, when I look at soilless farm, some of these soilless farm techniques in areas like Benue State, in areas like Niger State, my opinion, please, my opinion. I feel it's more like we're trying to adopt what we don't really understand, because we have land that is not being used already that can be converted into use. If Lagos is doing it, yes, we understand Lagos have over 20 million or 25 million people in that small space, that a very good number of the land is water. In fact, we have the island. Island is water everywhere. So when Lagos is adopting this kind of technology, fine. And it's to also even now challenge states that have landmass, like Niger State, having this kind of landmass in Nigeria. So if Lagos is adopting soilless farming, young people who are bringing an innovative way to farm, looking at the land size, most of the lands in Lagos is more for real estate, companies and all of that. Then a good portion of it is water. Now, young people are bringing innovation for soilless farming. States like Benue State and Niger State should not be looking at areas like that. We should be looking at how we can convert our land that is not unused. For example, Kogi State has over 60% of its arable land unused. We should start challenging ourselves how we can use them to start farming. And again, advocate for, I'll say we start advocating for the land, for the right of use. If I see a land that is not being used, I should have the right to use it for farm. I can use it to farm. I should have that right to use it for farm. It should be a law that if your land is not being used for anything, it's a crime in Nigeria, so that young people can start getting, so for young people who want to farm and don't have maybe resources to lease land to farm, so to be able to farm, so that we can organically grow our food, we can participate in agriculture, we can have food security in our country. So I think one thing again we should look at is right of use. If I see a land that is not being used, I should farm on it. And the government should be able to protect me. I should have some kind of protection that until harvest, the landowner should not try to destroy my crop, so that we can organically grow our food. The use of organic fertilizer is currently what a lot of people are advocating for in Nigeria. We have a lot of organic fertilizer that are doing very, very well. And I think when we keep encouraging farmers to use this, when we keep encouraging farmers to farm using all of these methods, we can be able to tackle food insecurity in Nigeria.
How do we enlighten our farmers? How do we create a situation whereby they can learn more, not just stick to what they've known in the past, but they can also increase their knowledge, make it readily available to them in a more friendly manner, that's something they can actually connect with?
Okay, all right. So recently we started a project in Taraba, and what we're trying to do is to show them a demo site. So we're trying to say, don't just do what I say, see what I am doing, then do what I do. Most of the farmers are quite, like I said, they are stick. They are stick to what they know. It even happened with me and my father. My father is a farmer, and there was a time I was telling him about NIMET weather report and how it's going to affect farming that particular year. Father said, "What do you know? I've been farming before you were born." Again, he's my father, so I can't doubt that. So he did his farm, I did mine. At the end of the farming season, he got to understand what I was saying. Now I consult for him. Sometimes he wants to make decisions, he'll call me and tell me, okay, this is it. What are my thoughts? And I share my thoughts with him. Now, what we need to do now is to let us now. When we went to Taraba, one of the things I discovered was the fact that because we're wearing, they told us that we're white farmers, like we're wearing suits, we're looking too neat to be called farmers. So they don't understand the concept that you like this, you call yourself a farmer, and you even have an office, and you're calling yourself a farmer. So we need to start educating them that farming is not necessarily synonymous with suffering and carrying hoe and cutlass, but there are improved ways that this can be done. So we're trying to have demo sites. We're having demo sites for us to use our demo sites to teach them this is how it is being done. And again, our more interest on young people. I'm young. When I talk with when I talk with people in my age category, I can be able to convince them faster than most of our fathers because of the age difference. So one of the things like I said, we're trying to focus on young people, bring young people to participate in agriculture. A very good way to go, because I still believe that the future of food security is us going beyond promises and getting young people to be involved. Young people must participate in agriculture if we're going to talk about youth, if we're going to talk about food security. Now, educating young old people, they need to see what we're doing. They need to get to see it. Then again, we also still need state government, especially Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Most states, apart from Gombe, apart from Gombe, most states, cooperatives, for you to register a cooperative, you have to pass through the Ministry of or Chamber of Commerce and Industry of the state. So we need to start looking at how we can synergize with these chambers. Now, to educate first the leaders of the cooperatives, the leaders of the farmers associations themselves, then we can be able to educate the farmers, because there's what I call the trust level. Because we are new, they might not want to accept us. So acceptance level might, in every innovation, there are stages for the fusion of this innovation. We have the early adapters, we have the laggers, and then we have people that either you like it or not, they don't like your innovation. So these three stages. So, however, for us to be able to scale fast, we need people that they trust, these farmers trust. And now these are some of the associations that belong to, the cooperatives that belong to. Well, one of the challenging factors for us when we're interacting with farmers associations in Nigeria is that most of these associations are political, and they are more self-interest driven, especially for the leadership. Now, there's a particular farmers association we were interacting with, and the leaders came and told us that they have 5 million members. So when we're looking at it, wow, okay, we're going to be able to have access to these 5 million members. Okay, let's say, even though it's 1% of these 5 million members that we're able to have interactions with, we're able to empower. Unfortunately, they are not up to 100. They'll tell you that they are cut across the over 700 local governments in Nigeria, the 36 states plus the federal capital, and their membership, their structures is quite, let me say, pitiable. So these associations often they're more politically driven. It's just for them to have associations. Then when it's come for election, when it's election season, they want to mop up this so-called data and get maybe funding. And again, I want to be fair to also associations that are doing good. Then when we start interacting with most of these associations that don't have accurate data, they'll tell you they have 1 million members, 5 million members, just like I stated earlier. By the time you ask them to bring the data, they don't have the data of these farmers. Sometimes they start conjoining names and data that cannot be verified. So, FACAN, we have the Federation of Commodity Associations of Nigeria, FACAN, under the Ministry of Trade, Industry, Trade and Investment, that are saddled with the responsibility to bring these commodity associations together. Now, if these associations can build on their data collections for them to have accurate accurate data of their members, it's now easier for us to train their executives. Then trainings can also go, let's say we train the trainers, then the trainers train their members. So we train their executives, the executives in turn train their members. Now, it's going to be quite cost effective because it's not easy to train over 50 million farmers in Nigeria. It's going to be how will I put it? The federal government cannot handle that at the moment. And I don't think any private institutions can even handle that. There's a particular project, CRS, that's Catholic Relief Service, if I'm correct, CRS. The NGO was doing with some farmers in we're doing with farmers in Nigeria, in Kogi State. So they just selected some few farmers, empower them, then ask the farmers to start empowering other farmers in terms of cassava farming. They came with a good breed of cassava stems for farming. So we need to start looking at these associations. They need to be correct. Cooperatives, our cooperative system must be very correct. It's happening in Rwanda. Rwanda has a very good system for their cooperatives. So we also need to have that here so that it's easier now to be able to pass this information for us to be able to effectively educate the farmers. Because when an organization is going to meet these farmers, they have their disbelief, they have their trust level, they have their trust issues, they have their, we are used to this, there are particular people they are used to. And again, in every community, we have the vociferous. The vociferous, whatever the vociferous says, every other person in the community gets to believe the person. So with the vociferous, which we as an outsider, you might not be able to identify them, but the community themselves can identify, they know themselves. So by the time we now work with these vociferous, we work with the cooperative heads, we work with the association heads, we can be able to pass accurate information, then educate these farmers effectively. We can educate them randomly, but there's an effective education that needs to happen, and that has to still do with the chain of associations and cooperatives that these farmers belong to. I think with this, then this, like I said, what this will help us to achieve is cost effectiveness. So it's going to reduce our costs because we are doing the education systematically to get to all the layers and all the bottlenecks that we're seeking to confront if we're trying to deal with farmers directly.
Okay, well said. Yes, this education is key. And like I said, a partnership or collaboration with the government, a partnership with the federal government, the state governments, and also private organizations like your company to this education can be achieved. And it can also create a situation whereby farming is seen as a more attractive occupation or a more attractive career for young people. It shouldn't just be white-collar jobs all the time. They should actually see farming as something that they can build a career on. And with this education, in partnership with farming bodies and both government-owned and private organizations, it can be achieved. Okay, so I mentioned genetically modified seeds. Now, it's something that I was talking about, that if we don't cultivate, if we don't have more organic, practice this organic agricultural method of farming, that it's something that we could introduce. And I've noticed a trend in Nigeria when we are trying to increase our crop production, we tend to bring in foreigners as agricultural experts. So I feel we have the talents, we have the pool of resources here to achieve this. But with genetically modified seeds, it's something which has been discussed for some time, but it's not exactly, I would like to get your thoughts on this, because these seeds have their own disadvantages. They are not exactly it's not exactly something that everybody should welcome wholeheartedly. So now we also know the issue of these seeds, that in a few years' time they might not be readily available for, you could actually plant them, but they won't yield any fruits. It's just going to be there in the ground. So to avoid us using these hybrid seeds and still focusing on these organic methods, because it's something that people have been talking about, can we just, their situation, can we create a more permanent solution so that we can just avoid using anything genetically modified? So your thoughts on this, Emmanuel Abushson?
All right, good. Now, just like you said, these seeds are imported. So we don't own the system. There are countries or companies that own the system. Now, the danger I see is if anyone can control your system, sorry, the person that has the system, that controls the system, that can control your feeding, that can control your economy, that can control your politics, can control your media, is already controlling you. Now, for us to have control of our own system, we must start looking at how we can sustain our own organic crops, because they have its ability, there are seeds that have the ability to replicate themselves. But most of the seeds that we're bringing in, the GMO seeds, are seeds that cannot replicate themselves. So we are always relying on the supplier. And when there is any drift, let's say, for example, Russia and Ukraine are having war. If Russia were the one supplying Ukraine seeds, as at now, the farming result will decline, because they control the system. Now we need to start controlling our own narratives. We need to start controlling our own system. And it's very simple. What some of this country or one of these companies do is to use the media to set their agenda and make us believe that, yes, this is an alternative. As much as it looks as an alternative, it has its own side effects, it has its own advantages, and I like to see every solution from a two sides of the coin. Every solution brings its own troubles, and every trouble gets another solution. Now, my interest, I want to speak more because I'm not a health practitioner, so I don't want to speak about the health complications of this seeds, but I want to talk about the system. The system is not in our control, and most of us don't even know how to generate the seeds if they are gone. So we are always relying on supply. It's not good. It's not going to be good for us agricultural wise. It's not going to be good for us business wise. It's not going to be good for us when we're talking about food security. What we need to do now is to empower our seed. Now, I look at income from like a two-edged sword. So when we farm, at the end of our harvest, which is our income now as farmers, we have our seed and we have our bread. We eat our bread, we preserve our seed. Often we eat our seed and we eat our bread.
Okay, sorry for interrupting you there. Yes, I understand what you have said so far. Yes, it's definitely, there are two sides to the coin. So thank you so much for discussing this issue with me this morning. It's really appreciated, and we enjoy having you on the program every time you join us. Thank you so much for joining us this morning on Market Insight.
Thank you so much, Lovina. It's nice to be here. Thank you.
Okay, so now let's take a look at the money markets now, how the dollars, pound sterling, and the euro is faring for today, 21st of May. So now at the official rate, the dollar for today, Tuesday, 21st May, for the dollar is 1,399 naira to $1. At the parallel market rates, it's 1,490 naira to $1. And the pound sterling at the official rate is 1,799 naira to £1 sterling. At the parallel market rate, it's 1,900 naira to £1 sterling. The euro, it's 1,540 naira to €1, and that's the official rate. At the parallel market rate, it's 1,600 naira to €1. So those are our money market figures this morning. Okay, so that's our time this morning on Market Insights as we discuss sustainable and alternative methods of agriculture. And as we know, the road to a sustainable future is paved with collaboration with farmers, researchers, policymakers, and businesses. And by joining forces, sharing knowledge and resources, we'll foster a culture of eco-conscious practices which can unlock a new era of agricultural prosperity in Nigeria. Many thanks for watching the program. I am your host, Lovina Emah.